Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you must be doing good, inshallah. It's me, Anjum Akil, at your own channel, English Lounge with Anjum. In today's video, we'll be discussing that how Chaucer has presented his characters realistically, or how we can see Chaucer's realism in his writings like Prologue to the Canterbury Tales. In order to understand realism of Chaucer, we need to understand the term realism. So basically, realism refers to representation of reality without any personal bias. Now let's come towards Chaucer's realism. Chaucer was a realist as he produced the literature according to what he witnessed. Chaucer was a true person and he has presented a realistic picture of society based on his observations and experiences. What he has given is an immediate transpiration of everyday life. Chaucer's realism was something new in English literature. There were no glimpse of realism in the writings of earlier writers. They were bounded by some conventions, or they were bounded by some constraints, or they were bounded by some rules in their writings. When Chaucer began to write, he was also the follower of these conventions, and he followed pattern of Romance of Rose and the Book of Duchess. For the first time in Canterbury Tales, he went to real life for the source of his own material. Chaucer's realism has some basic features which we can observe in Prologue to Canterbury Tales. So, first feature is objectivity. Chaucer is not subjective and he does not let his personality color his work. He allows the characters to act as they do in real life. We can say that he remains unbiased, rather objective in portrayal of characters. So the next is no moral purpose. There is no moral purpose in Chaucer's work, and he does not want to glorify virtue or condemn vice. He knows that humans are mixture of virtues and vices. To make it simple, we can say that Chaucer loves the sinner while he hates the sin. In his work, Canterbury Tales, Chaucer presented a balanced picture of life. His characters depict people from different walks of life. Another feature of Chaucer's realism is that he gives minute details of his characters. Chaucer depicts the realistic picture of society minutely. The description of minute details of his characters reveals his deep observation. Now, let's take some examples of Chaucer's realism from the original text of Prologue to Canterbury Tales. So, our first character is the character of the knight. Chaucer has realistically depicted knight in Canterbury Tales. The knight was a worthy man, having fought well for his king as well as Christianity. Now let's discuss a few examples from Prologue which give us description of his realism. So Chaucer says that a knight there was and that a worthy man. Here Chaucer has depicted a realistic picture of medieval knight. He further says, to ridden out he loved chivalry. Bravery or chivalry are the two basic traits that are important in the personality of good knight. Chaucer observed and presented them before us without any personal living. So the next character is of the squire. Despite some influential qualities, he was not up to the mark of knight. Through his character, Chaucer throws light on secular practices or the moral corruption of society of medieval times. Chaucer says about the squire that a lover and a lusty bachelor. Here Chaucer has presented realistic picture of typical medieval squire. Chaucer was so concerned with his characters that he observed minute details carefully. Here we see that how realistic and careful Chaucer was while portraying Squire's character. He further says, "So hot he loved that by night a tale." Here Chaucer tries to shed light on the moral corruption prevalent in the society. The next character is of the Prioress. Prioress presents a secular woman having lust for worldly and materialistic possessions. Chaucer says about Prioress that she let no morsel from her lips fall. Chaucer was so realistic in the description of Prioress that he even observed her dining manners and presented before us. He further says about her, "Of Greece, when she drunken had her draught." Chaucer depicted the true picture of religious class of that time because the religious class of that time don't believe in religion, rather they believe in religiosity. It means that the distorted form of religion. The religious class of Chaucer's age was not concerned about the sufferings of humans. They were contented with materialistic possessions. And that's what Chaucer has portrayed in front of us. Now, the character of Monk. Monk was morally and financially corrupt person. He was also from a religious class. So Chaucer observes and says about him that he had of gold wrought a full curious pen. Basically, monk takes oath of poverty. So here the question arises that how a monk can afford such an expensive thing. So the answer is it is the corruption of monk, or it is the corruption of religious class that makes all the things affordable to them. Now we will take from examples from the character of the friar. Through this character, Chaucer depicts a very shameful picture of religious class. Friar was financially and morally corrupt person. He also exploits religion in order to satisfy his own needs. Chaucer says about him, "He had made full many a marriage." Here, Chaucer basically wants to give us an objective representation of moral corruption of religious class, or specifically the friar. He further says about him, "For he had power of confession." People from religious class of that time usually exploit religion to get worldly accomplishments. So here Chaucer directly criticizes the corruption of religious class through friar. Character of the parson is the next character which we would take as an example from Canterbury Tales. Beside Knight, Chaucer had used idealistic approach in presentation of character of parson. Through this character, Chaucer also shuts the mouth of his critics. Despite the fact that Parson was from religious class, we finally conclude that Chaucer was not against the religious class, rather he throws a realistic picture before our eyes. Chaucer's realism in character of Parson is depicted as follows. He says, "A good man was there of religion." Here, Chaucer was showing a kind attitude of religious class because the parson compels him to do this. He has given an ideal picture of religious class through this line. "But rich he was of holy thought and work." Chaucer observed the personality of Parson deeply by spending time with him. He has later on given a very impressive picture of Parson in his prologue. So, by keeping in view all the examples from the original text from the Canterbury Tales, we can say Chaucer was rightly considered to be a dramatic genius of his age who, by using tools like realism, successfully depicted an objective picture of society without any personal bias. That's all. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your patience. And please don't forget to like and share the video. Allah Hafiz.